Cheers.
Abby, thank you very much.
Cheers. I'll see you guys this weekend. Have a good Monday, everybody.
And this is a Fox News alert. A new way forward with Iran. This is Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. Right now delivering his first major address since taking office. He's at the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C., taking a tough stance toward Tehran, slamming the sunset provisions he just said could let Iran sprint to build a nuclear bomb, and says the regime continues to lie. Let's listen.
Use the money from the JCPOA to boost the economic fortunes of a struggling people. But the regime's leaders refuse to do so. Instead, the government spent its newfound treasure fueling proxy wars across the Middle East and aligning the pockets of Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. Remember, Iran advanced its march across the Middle East during the JCPOA. Qasem Soleimani has been playing with house money that has become blood money. Wealth created by the West has fueled his campaigns. Strategically, the Obama administration made a bet that the deal would spur Iran to stop its rogue state actions and conform to international norms. That bet was a loser with massive repercussions for all of the people living in the Middle East. The idea of the JCPOA as a strategic pillar of stability in the Middle East was captured perfectly by John Kerry when he said, quote, "I know the Middle East that is on fire is going to be more manageable with this deal," end of quote. Query whether the Middle East is more manageable today than it was when they embarked on the JCPOA. Lebanon is even more comfortable home for Hezbollah today than it was when we embarked on the JCPOA. Hezbollah is now armed to the teeth by Iran and has its sight set on Israel. Thanks to Iran, Hezbollah provides the ground forces for the military expedition in Syria. The IRGC, has continued to pump thousands of fighters into Syria to prop up the murderous Assad regime and help make that country 71,000 square miles of kill zone. Iran perpetuates a conflict that has displaced more than 6 million Syrians inside the country, 6 million Syrians, and caused over 5 million to seek refuge outside of its borders. These refugees include foreign fighters who have crossed into Europe and threatened terrorist attacks in those countries. In Iraq, Iran sponsors Shia militia groups and terrorists to infiltrate and undermine the Iraqi security forces and jeopardize Iraq's sovereignty. All of this during the JCPOA. In Yemen, Iran's support for the Houthi militia fuels a conflict that continues to starve the Yemeni people and hold them under the threat of terror. The IRGC has also given Houthi missiles to attack civilian targets in Saudi Arabia and the Emirates and to threaten international shipping in the Red Sea. And in Afghanistan, Iran's support to the Taliban in the form of weapons and funding leads to further violence and hinders peace and stability for the Afghan people. Today, the Iranian Quds Force conducts covert assassination operations in the heart of Europe. We should remember, too, that during the JCPOA, Iran continues to hold Americans hostage. Bakir Namazi, Siamak Namazi, Shewu Wong, and Bob Levinson, who's been missing for over 11 years. I will note, for the American people, you should know we are working diligently to bring each American missing wrongfully detained in Iran home. The list continues. Iran continues to be, during the JCPOA, the world's largest sponsor of terror. It continues to serve as sanctuary for al-Qaeda, as it has done since 9/11, and remains unwilling to bring to justice senior al-Qaeda members residing in Tehran. Today, we ask the Iranian people, is this what you want your country to be known for? For being a co-conspirator with Hezbollah, Hamas, the Taliban, and al-Qaeda? The United States believes you deserve better. And I have an additional point for the Iranian people to ponder. Here in the West, President Rouhani and Foreign Minister Zarif are often held apart from the regime's unwise terrorists and malign behavior. They are treated somehow differently. The West says, boy, if only they could control Ayatollah Khomeini and Qasem Soleimani, then things would be great. Yet Rouhani and Zarif are your elected leaders. Are they not the most responsible for your economic struggles? Are these two not responsible for wasting Iranian lives throughout the Middle East? It's worth the Iranian people considering. Because instead of helping their own citizens, the regime continues to seek a corridor stretching from Iran's borders to the shores of the Mediterranean. Iran wants this corridor to transport fighters and advanced weapon systems to Israel's doorsteps. Indeed, in recent months, the IRGC has flown an armed drone into Israeli airspace and launched salvos of rockets into the Golan Heights from Syria. Our steadfast ally has asserted its sovereign right of self-defense in response, a stance the United States will continue to unequivocally support. So the bet that the JCPOA would increase Middle East stability was a bad one for America, for Europe, for the Middle East, and indeed for the entire world. It is clear that the JCPOA has not ended Iran's nuclear ambitions, nor did it deter its quest for a regional hegemony. Iran's leaders saw a deal as the starting gun for the march across the Middle East. So, the path forward. America's commitment to the Iran strategy President Trump laid down in October remains. It will now be executed outside of the JCPOA. We'll continue to work with allies to counter the regime's destabilizing activities in the region, block their financing of terror, and address Iran's proliferation of missiles and other advanced weapon systems that threaten peace and stability. We will also ensure Iran has no path to a nuclear weapon. Not now, not ever. Following our withdrawal from the JCPOA, President Trump has asked me to achieve these goals on Iran. We'll pursue those goals along several lines of effort. First, we will apply unprecedented financial pressure on the Iranian regime. The leaders in Tehran will have no doubt about our seriousness. Thanks to our colleagues at the Department of Treasury, sanctions are going back in full effect and new ones are coming. Last week, we imposed sanctions on the head of Iran's central bank and other entities that were funneling money to the IRGC Quds Force. They were also providing money to Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations. The Iranian regime should know that this is just the beginning. This sting of sanctions will be painful if the regime does not change its course from the unacceptable and unproductive path it has chosen to one that rejoins the League of Nations. These will indeed end up being the strongest sanctions in history when we are complete. The regime has been fighting all over the Middle East for years. After our sanctions come in force, it will be battling to keep its economy alive. Iran will be forced to make a choice. Either fight to keep its economy off life support at home or keep squandering precious wealth on fights abroad. It will not have the resources to do both.
We've been listening to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, who's at the Heritage Foundation in Washington. We're hearing him laying out a strong and determined case against the Iranian nuclear deal and slamming Tehran's theocratic jihadi leadership, pointing out that the agreement has fueled Iran's support of terrorism, bolstered its influence in the Middle East, and as written now, would permit Tehran to build a nuclear bomb, he said, when the limits are lifted in about 10 years. From sheltering al-Qaeda terrorists to building ballistic missiles, he said the Obama administration made a bad bet that the Trump administration is not repeating, slapping the strongest sanctions possible against the regime. Let's bring in John Sununu now, former New Hampshire governor and White House chief of staff to President George H.W. Bush. So, Governor, do you believe the Secretary of State has a realistic, clear-eyed view of the danger and the threat that Tehran poses, considering its long history of deceit?
I think he certainly does, and he's laying it out as clearly as he can for the rest of the world to understand what I believe we understand. And it is crucial for him to do this. And I hope in this speech he reminds our European allies that they bought into the Obama sham, that Obama had the authority to enter into such a far-reaching agreement without sending it to the Senate for approval. And of course, the reason Obama did not send it to the Senate for approval is that even the Democratic senators led by Chuck Schumer opposed the Iran deal that Obama put together. So this is a crucial speech. And the other problem that the rest of the world has is that, unfortunately, when you get outside of the United States, the only news reports they see, 99% plus, come from CNN International. And we understand the bias that that network has been carrying relative to everything the president has done.
Well, that's a really interesting perspective. And one thing when you're dealing with Europe, for example, the EU is trying to do an end run now around the Iranian nuclear deal. Do you think that will be successful, or do you think the Secretary of State and the administration's message will get through?
Well, you can see how greed is really the motivation for the European Union. They are more concerned about their companies doing business. They have even said that if some of the smaller companies lose business because of U.S. sanctions, that somehow the EU will compensate them if they continue to do business with Iran. So the veil is off of this thing in the sense of Europe doing it for commercial and mercantile reasons, and the fact that they really were willing partners to Obama in trying to impose something without senatorial approval in the U.S.
And, you know, finally, Governor, I mean, the deal was supposed to change Tehran's behavior. But we're seeing from the resistant groups, there have been demonstrations over this weekend. They say some demonstrators have been killed. They have continued to spread terrorism around the world. They are the #1 state sponsor of terrorism, according to the State Department. Has this deal, has the money, has that led them back into the civilized world? Or has that just fueled the terrorism that Secretary of State Pompeo just said that they have engaged in?
It has fueled the terrorism, and unfortunately, the Iranian people who were supposed to get benefits from this have gotten nothing. And it just underscores the fact that anybody who believed what Obama and Kerry were selling them really was naive. Obama and Kerry really will be seen in history, I think, for having passed an agreement, supported an agreement that was really negative in its impact.
All right, Governor Johnson, thank you. Supporters say it has stopped Iran from building a nuclear bomb, but of course critics say it's only a matter of time. By the way, good morning, everyone. I'm Eric Shawn in for Bill Hemmer.
Yes, and
along with Heather.
Yeah, I'm Heather.